bulletin. He's cute, isn't he? Do you remember when you looked at the world like that? When everything seemed to be a wonder? Where you saw so many miracles all around you. Each day was a miracle, I think. And of course, the miracle of your first snowfall, remember that? I remember one of those snowfalls. We had a really good snow in Cincinnati that winter, and I walked off my grandmother's porch, and the snow was deeper than I was tall. It was kind of fun tunneling through the snow. But what about the first Christmas you remember? Wasn't that magical? Absolute miracle. Miracle's a great word. But I want to ask you, how do you think? What do you think about them? What do you think about miracles? Are they supernatural occurrences? Are they something you'd like to see but don't expect? Is it because God just happens to do some great good thing for you, even though maybe you haven't earned it? Some remarkable event that common sense tells you shouldn't be happening? Is it some special favor? I've found a couple of quotes from Charles Fillmore I really liked. And these come from Weekly Unity, and they're from back in 1914, April 8th edition of Weekly Unity in 1914. He said, "Let us clearly understand that a miracle is not a violation of the laws of nature, nor was any such claim ever made by those who performed miracles." Well, who do you think? Who can you think of who performed miracles? I think of one especially, Jesus, Elijah, Elisha, others in the Bible. And none of them ever said, well, you know, this is something special and unusual and supernatural, and don't expect too many of these in your life. They never said that. Charles continued in that same article in Weekly Unity. When we come to define these laws of nature, we find ourselves on debatable ground, because what man in one age considered a fixed law of nature has been annulled in the next. For instance, a quarter of a century ago, now that would put it somewhere about 1885 or so. For instance, a quarter of a century ago, it was set down as an invariable law of nature that chickens could be hatched only by an old hen. Isn't that politically incorrect, calling the mother an old hen? Covering the eggs for a certain number of weeks. It has since been discovered that it was not the hen nor her motherly love that hatched chickens, but a simple matter of so many degrees of Fahrenheit maintained for a certain length of time, so that inexorable law of nature had to be raised to a higher degree. Thank you, Charles. And of course, you remember Pablo Picasso, right? The guy who painted as if he needed glasses. I love his quote about miracles. He said, "Everything is a miracle. It is a miracle that one does not dissolve in one's bathtub like a lump of sugar." Well, I kind of agree with the guy. That seems to be a miracle. Now, there are miracles all around us, going on all the time. And yet, are we aware of them? Do we see them? Consider sunlight. We walk through it. We use it. We make electricity with it. We flourish and grow in its presence. Yet we may not give it much thought except when we find it's in our eyes and we want somebody to change the position of the shade to get the sun out of our eyes. Or all of a sudden you realize, I'm heading west in my car and I can't see anything because the sun's directly straight ahead. You reach for that thing and pull it down. We light a candle and think how beautiful that light is. How warm, how romantic. Then we turn on an electric light and think how much better this room looks. I've said to people over the years, you know, this old lady, meaning this building, really looks good at candle lighting with the lights out. How much better this room looks with that lamp in that position. Oh, and isn't that better than candlelight? And yet, there's that orb overhead that has been shining for billions of years, that has the power to light half the earth all at one time, completely, fully. And do we ever give it any thought of what a miracle that thing is? What a miracle it is where it is. If we were too close, we wouldn't be here. If we were too far away, we wouldn't be here. If it was too bright, if it was too dim, we wouldn't be here. How often do we think about the miraculousness of the very sun over our heads? What about snowfall? I told you about that early one in my life. Let me tell you about one I thought was exquisite. The year my father passed, and I said to my friend Carol, and I said, well, now we're both orphans. What should we do for Christmas? There's no family to have Christmas with. So I got what I thought was a divine idea. Let's go to Canada. Have you heard of Quebec City? You go to Toronto and then to Montreal, and then you head east up the St. Lawrence Seaway, and it's almost to Newfoundland. It is so extremely French that I remember along the way, we stopped in Trois-Rivières, Three Rivers, at a McDonald's. Now, in this little town, McDonald's had veggie burgers. And Carolyn didn't know how to order because nobody spoke English. We had veggie burgers, fries, coffee. It was amazing. We got to Chateau Frontenac. I had made reservations for 2 nights. Christmas Eve and Christmas night. At that point in time, I thought, that's all I can afford. We did get the cheapest room in the hotel. At the time, it was $300 a night. But let me tell you, it was worth every penny. We had a beautiful time, the Christmas Eve, walking around the streets, narrow streets. Beautiful, looked just like a French village. We went to midnight mass at the cathedral with the bishop, and then back to the hotel, and the next morning I awoke to about quarter to 50-cent size snowflakes out our window. Christmas morning, and it was beautiful. We had reservations in the hotel. They have a large buffet for Christmas dinner that night. And they were fixing a special vegetarian dinner for me. When we got in the restaurant, we were the second table away from these whole wall of windows that looked out over a promenade, a place where people walked. We watched this snow come down while we were having dinner. Beautiful snowflakes. We watched kids building a snowman out there. Dogs frolicking in the snow. It was so beautiful. Dinner was so good. After dinner, we actually went outside and walked in the snow. And it wasn't frigid. It wasn't uncomfortable. It was so beautiful. That memory is burned into my mind, into my soul, really. It was an exquisite night. It was a great gift I gave to myself that Christmas. After we left there, we went on back to Montreal, spent a night in Montreal, visiting some of the places I like, and a wonderful Chinatown. And then we were in Toronto for New Year's, and that was pretty astounding, pretty exciting. There's so many miracles around us. Do we pay attention to the beauty of a snowfall? How in just a couple of hours, it can cover an entire city and miles of country around the city and cover every branch of every tree until everything looks magical. And it came from the invisible into our world. That child on your bulletin, isn't that the face that he would have looking at a snowfall for the first time, seeing it in its beauty, or the sun? A number of things. Then comes spring. Think about it. One of my friends, Vi Davis, a dear friend during ministerial school and after, she used a phrase in a talk she gave to a retreat once. She talked about a rose bush manifesting, are you ready? Dead stickness in the winter. I think it's a perfect description. Isn't that what a rose bush looks like in winter? Dead stickness. Through the winter, how much dead stickness there is around us. Then in spring, it's almost overnight. Out pops all this stuff, a riot of colors. And it comes out of all the vegetation, but the vegetation is not diminished by it, it's increased. Hundreds of thousands of tons of new substance and new beauty every spring. And do we look at it with those same kind of eyes? Do we look with wonder at it and say, there is a God, and God's right here, and God's at work? I sort of think, when all that vegetation pops out in the spring, it's as if the voice of the Creator says to us, trust me, trust me. I am that life force that is also working through you. Do we look with wonder? Do we realize that presence? I think that's one of Jesus' secrets. He saw God everywhere. Do you ever think of that amazing thing you call your body? How it started from one little cell and then grew to whatever size it is now. all without you having to think about it and engineer it, or even wonder if it was going to take place. Oh, I know, when you were 5, you couldn't wait until you grew to be 6. You grew to be big, and you did. And then maybe thought, gee, I wish I weren't quite so big. Good Lord, we maybe do it a little smaller. Your heart, it begins beating before birth, and it doesn't cease through your lifetime. It does its work whether you're sleeping or you're active. Doesn't matter. It's there, and it does what it does, and it does it without you having to think about it. Your nervous system, you've got nerves running throughout your body, carrying messages to various centers and various organs and systems. They're remarkable structures. They enable you to touch and feel, to smell. Well, to have the sense of smell, it would be better put. And to taste. Your eyes. And the wonder of sight itself. You are a miracle. You are a miracle happening every day. There's almost 80 years ago. Seems like a long time ago, but I think how astute this surgeon was. A surgeon about 80 years ago said this: do you ever stop to consider, for instance, your fingers? Well, do you? Do you ever really pay a lot of attention to them? He goes on, think how soft they are. They're not made of steel or iron, yet either steel or iron used as constantly as your hands are used over so many years would wear down. Your fingers never do. Then too, do you ever wonder how they happen to stop at such a length instead of growing into great long tentacles? How do they grow as long as they should? You'll have to admit that there must be a great planner who arranged all this and who has the power to control it as he planned it. They're pretty remarkable. And look, with these things, what we do. Artists, sculptors, painters, bakers, cooks, I should say chefs, musicians, on a variety of different instruments and different ways of playing. What beauty we create with these things we probably never think about. Amazing too. And you all know your fingerprints are unique. And you had them before you were born. They were already created unique. What about your mind? And the thoughts in it. That's pretty miraculous too. Do we really see that our minds and the operation of our minds require the constant activity of an unlimited, miraculous power? We say, I had a thought. But if you really understand how your mind works, you lay hold of a thought. It's captured in your mind. That's why Jesus uses the idea of casting a net. Your mind is the net that lays hold of the fish or God's ideas. We tune in and we connect with a divine idea, a God idea. And then we decide whether we'll go with it or not, whether we'll accept the miracle of that idea or not. We're not really separate entities. We are the expression of the infinite mind of God. And then there's the feeling nature, the emotional nature. Is there anything more miraculous in life than that wonderful and pervasive warmth of love that flows out of you to others and from others to you? Have you felt it in your life? Have you been aware of that miracle? Have you felt it actually moving through you? Have you looked at someone and realized that person loves you deeply? Have you looked at another and thought, I love this person? And felt that love moving through you in a wave. And we thought sunlight was warm and wonderful. The sunlight that illumines this world. But it could not light our lives without the warmth of love. Children who do not feel love, who are not connected, who are not touched by love, do not thrive. They're animals who do not thrive without love. We have to have it. And yet, sometimes we're not at all aware of it coming to us, from within us. Love is infinitely present and active and real as the sunlight that flows down upon your head. And love is as important. Sometimes we may take love for granted, or we don't notice it, or even recognize that we have it or that we are receiving it. We may see it in others and greatly desire to feel it in ourselves. But we may feel detached from it. We might as well long for daylight someone else is enjoying. Recognize the love that you have. Look with wonder upon it. The love that comes to you day by day. The love that's priceless. The love of God within another person moving through them to you and through you to them. It's a healing power. It makes all things brighter and more beautiful. Look with wonder upon it and give thanks for it. Rejoice that you possess it. Better yet, that love possesses you. Because I can't think of a diviner gift and to feel and know the pure, perfect love of God flowing to you from whatever source or channel. When we blindly ignore that love, it's what gives us that detached feeling and limits the degree of love that we can experience in our own lives. So open. Look with wonder upon it, upon your life, your world, the miracle of your body, the miracle of your mind, the miracle of you. Daily, hourly. The greatest miracle of all is happening to you. The miracle of living and loving. And recognize that your own experience of these, the more you see them, the more they are real to you. You realize that you are one with a miracle-producing power. When you have this awareness, you can drop worry and other negative states of mind and emotions and realize you are in the presence of God. You are in the presence of that miracle-making power. And it works in you, around you. And it works always. You've got eyes. But I ask you to look with wonder. And to look with wonder, you don't need the eyes. You need the insight of your soul to see beyond physicality, to see the very life, power, and presence of God all around you. What a glory your life is. Life that's rich, life that's extravagant. Think of those tons and tons of leaves and twigs and blossoms of all colors that pop out in the spring just because God's beauty, God's miracle that's prepared for you.